Welcome to the Code Breakers. This is Paradox, and we're going to be breaking down Trump's second assassination attempt. It is September the 16th, 2024, 50 days until the election. It's going down, 7 weeks to go. So if you are a political head, I know you are excited. To all my political junkies that are out there, if you're not into politics or politricks, you are on the wrong channel. uh, that's funny. Anyway, so I think we were streaming yesterday, and I guess the initial reports were saying that there were two people shooting at themselves outside of, because we got the news real time when we was live, that two people were shooting outside of the golf course. And then come to find out that it was actually somebody in the bushes, a couple of holes in front of him on the golf course, at one of the golf holes that he was going to be going to, actually had a gun pointing at the golf hole, supposedly. So I don't know what's up with these stories. I guess they got them cleaned up and verified. Who knows what's real and what isn't, but I'm just reporting what the news is reporting, right? So I think they captured the guy alive, I guess. And, you know, here we are. But I will always caveat a lot of this stuff. But, I don't know what is and what isn't. I'm just going with it. And they, Trump sent some messages out. If you're on any of his campaign stuff, you would have got he was already capitalized on it too. I think I got a text message saying donate. They can't. I forget what the text message said. Something about I can't. They can't get me, or I can't be got, or something that said. I can't remember. But anyway, so we got that going on, and what else? We pretty much pivoted away from. We pivoted away from most of the debate is pretty much over with. That wave has pretty much crashed, and we're slowly moving into a new news cycle. I will report that there was an explosion in Houston that I saw. I might play just a quick minute of that video. Uh, Kamala, she does have a speech, I think, sometime today. So if she goes live with that speech while I'm live, I will stream some of that. And I have not looked up JD, Trump, or Tim to see if they're speaking, or Tim's wife to see if they're speaking. I don't know why. Just like with Vivek Ramaswamy, I don't know why Vivek. I don't know why Tim's wife, JD Vance's wife, is not giving any speeches and answering questions. But JD is still the cleanup man, which is a good thing. He's doing his job. The Democrats can't stand it. The progressives are running a massive amount of propaganda right now against JD. So you will hear a lot of parrots out here, of course, regurgitating all of their talking points that they've been spitting out against JD. But JD is doing his job. First he did say that, I think, what did he say? Trump, he said, they asked him something on ABC or CBS or wherever, that I've learned my lesson speaking for Trump. So he's making his corrections and getting things sort of squared away, and which is kind of funny. But I think he did a good job from a Republican perspective, or from a MAGA perspective. I think he did a good job of going into the lion's den, which is the mainstream media, left-wing apparatus. I think he did maybe CBS, ABC, CNN, I don't know if he does MSNBC. I've not really been paying attention hard enough. Is he doing MSNBC at all? I don't think so. MSNBC might be too left. They're not really, I guess, um, really progressive left in a sense, but they are, I guess, as left as they can be. From a corporate media perspective, I guess you could say. But anyway, JD is still dealing with the Haitian fallout, if you want to call it that. Um, so we got Trump's assassination today. We got the Haitian migrant issues today. We got poll numbers coming out again today. And like I said, we're not really dealing with the debate. It's starting to fade away. And oh, on a side note, I did watch a good series with Kevin Hart and Samuel L. Jackson that dropped on Peacock. I think Kevin Hart produced it too. What's the name of that show? It was pretty good for what it was. What was it called? Fight Night. The $1 Million Heist. It wasn't bad. It was not bad. Could have been. I think they should have made it more of a comedy. But that was my only critique. Um, but it wasn't bad. I think it's gonna do pretty good. They dropped the first 4 episodes, but I enjoyed it. Not bad. It wasn't bad. So I'm gonna play some of the sheriff. Where's the sheriff's streams that I have up? I'm gonna play some of the sheriff's information. I can find it. Oh, here we go. See, I haven't listened to this yet, but I want to see a little bit of what he's saying, and then I'm probably gonna play some of the governor's DeWine, the governor of Ohio. He had to come out and speak again. Uh, it's almost like they have to give one-on-one lessons to what immigration is in America. Americans are so strange in some ways, because I don't know what state anybody lives in who's listening, but we've always had immigrants coming into the country and having to learn how to drive. It's just the same, just like children, really. You have to learn, and unfortunately, unfortunate things do happen. And that's just the reality of it. But when you politicize something, you got to be ready for the storm, man. And the storm will come on. They will put the storm on you, even when you're not asking for it. And that's just the reality of living in this country. And immigrants have always been exploited, politically speaking. So it's nothing really new under the sun when it comes to that. So I'm not really going to be super emotional about it. But it is something to watch kind of play out from a political perspective, see how it's used. Is it going to affect poll numbers? Probably not. And if it did, I don't even know exactly what it would do, because when you look at the data, the Haitians that went to Springfield, they've improved the economy. Corporations are I gotta find a video. There's a really good video of a business owner at a factory who said some very interesting things about Haitians. So if I can find that video, I was looking for it earlier. That was interesting, and just understanding that one of the pipelines for industry, as far as labor is concerned, of course, is obviously immigration. And regardless of why they got here, be it a natural disaster or economic disaster or a war, when America accepts people into the country and we make a deal, because we're a global nation, of course. Uh, you know, we do things that help out other countries at the end of the day. So, and it's a position to exploit as well, of course. So bring them in, get them set up, get them working, and keep it moving, right? And so when you find out that, of course, and I don't know about numbers that come out on some of this stuff, but people who are looking to protect immigrants in general, legally or illegally, will quickly show you numbers where they commit the least amount of crimes. They, on and on and on, right? And so we'll see. We're going to keep monitoring that story and see sort of how that plays out. So let's play a little bit of this sheriff talking about the shooting and see if there's anything in there to sort of mine through.
Good, right? Don't get into what if and all this. Get legitimate questions. You got it?
I don't know his name. I don't know if he introduced himself or not.
Okay. We're here today to give an update on the investigation in regards to the incident at Trump International. With me is the U.S. Attorney, the FBI, and the Secret Service.
Everybody's there.
Just to give you a little information, as you well know, the road down there on Summit is still blocked off. It will be blocked off probably for the remainder of today and probably a good portion of tomorrow until some of the investigative things need to be done and finished. But we're accommodating people in and out, getting them to the library, getting them to the post office, so the public is not going to be that far inconvenienced. The security level at Mar-a-Lago is the highest it can possibly be now. The road closures are back in place and will remain there. The checkpoints are in place. And my commitment to the Secret Service is to give them every possible resource from PBSO. Once they determine the level of security that they need, they will get all the resources possible. So having said that, I'll let you talk to the U.S. Attorney.
Thank you, Sheriff. When you realize bloating and discomfort don't have to be routine, everything changes. Try Rise Mushroom Coffee.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Markenzie Lapointe. I am the United States Attorney for the Southern District of Florida. I want to start by expressing my deep gratitude to Sheriff Rick Bradshaw of Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office for hosting today's press conference and for his department's assistance with this matter. I'm truly grateful for your leadership, sir. I'm also pleased to be joined by our partners in federal law enforcement from the FBI and the United States Secret Service, and also from ATF. Joining us today for comments and announcements are Special Agent in Charge Jeffrey B. Veltri of the FBI Miami Field Office, and Acting Director of the U.S. Secret Service, Ron Rowe. I want to also thank the men and women in law enforcement who have been working around the clock in the initial phase of this ongoing investigation. Our partners include federal and local authorities who effectuated the apprehension of the defendant and have aided in ensuring federal charges were filed against him this morning. We're here to announce that Ryan Wesley Routh, 58 years old, of Hawaii, has been charged by a criminal complaint in the Southern District of Florida with firearms offenses related to an incident which occurred yesterday at Trump International Golf Course right here in West Palm Beach. Roth was charged federally with possession of a firearm by a convicted felon and possession and receipt of a firearm with an obliterated serial number. He had his initial appearance today before Magistrate Judge Ryan McCabe in the federal courthouse in West Palm Beach. According to the allegations in the complaint, a U.S. Secret Service agent walking the golf course perimeter saw what appeared to be a rifle poking out of the tree line. After the agent fired a service weapon in the direction of the rifle, a witness saw a man later identified as Ralph fleeing the area in the tree line. Roth was later apprehended by officers from the Martin County Sheriff's Office in coordination with the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. The complaint alleges that in the area of the tree line from which Ralph fled, agents found a digital camera, a backpack, a loaded SKS-style rifle with a scope, and a black plastic bag containing food. The serial number on the rifle was obliterated. According to the complaint, Ralph was convicted of felonies in North Carolina in December 2002 and March 2010, and therefore was prohibited from possessing a firearm. The FBI is leading this investigation, this ongoing investigation. As the Attorney General stated earlier today, the FBI is continuing its investigation of this incident as an assassination attempt upon the former president. The investigation remains at its early stages. The entire Justice Department, including the FBI, the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida, and the National Security Division are coordinating closely with our law enforcement partners to fully investigate and prosecute this matter. The charges we're announcing reflect the strong collaboration of the agencies represented here. The U.S. Attorney's Office, the Department of Justice, would be unable to carry forth our mission without the invaluable assistance of our federal, state, and local law enforcement partners. I would like to thank the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, and we have Chris Robinson here, Special Agent in charge, and your Secret Service for the invaluable assistance they are providing, they have been providing. I would also like to recognize the Palm Beach County and Martin County Sheriff's Offices for apprehending the defendant. Again, without the local authorities to assist in those things, it would be literally impossible to accomplish the things we're able to accomplish on the federal side. I want to personally express my gratitude to the attorneys with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida and the Counterterrorism Section of the Justice Department's National Security Division for their nonstop work over the last 24 to 30 hours. Together, we will continue to work tirelessly to ensure accountability and the pursuit of justice. At this time, I will invite FBI Special Agent in Charge, Jeff Veltri, to the podium. After Special Agent in Charge Veltri completes his remarks, Acting Director of the U.S. Secret Service, Ron Rowe, will provide remarks before we open the floor for a few questions. On our end, given that this is a pending matter before the court and the investigation is ongoing, all comments will be limited. Thank you very much. Jeff.
Good afternoon. For a quick introduction, my name is Jeffrey Veltri, FBI Special Agent in Charge for the Miami Field Office. The FBI immediately responded to the scene here in West Palm Beach, Florida, and we are investigating this matter as an apparent assassination attempt of former President Trump. We view this as extremely serious and are determined to provide answers as to what led up to the events which took place. I want to emphasize we're just a little over 24 hours into this investigation, so we're going to provide as much as we can publicly while our investigation is still ongoing. We must also stress that the United States Attorney's Office is pursuing charges, and that limits some of the details that we can discuss publicly. Yesterday afternoon, Martin County Sheriff's Office took custody of Ryan Ralph, and he was transported back to Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. Our FBI agents then attempted to interview him, and he invoked his right to an attorney. In the last 24 hours, the FBI and our partners have been dedicated to investigating the incident and utilizing all available resources. These efforts have included our investigative team and the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida, in conjunction with DOJ's National Security Division, are actively working hand in hand to pursue and subsequently execute search warrants. Thus far, the warrants include a video recording device, subjects' cellular devices, a vehicle, and other electronic devices located at previous known addresses. We are coordinating with the United States Secret Service to complete numerous interviews of agents on scene. We have also interviewed 7 civilian witnesses at the scene, and that is just the beginning. Our FBI's Honolulu and Charlotte field offices have initiated interviews of several family members, friends, and former colleagues of the subject. FBI has deployed several specialty teams and assets from FBI headquarters and our lab division in Quantico to include evidence and critical incident response personnel. The evidence response team is collecting and processing multiple evidentiary items. These range from the rifle, which is an SKS model with a scope and obliterated serial numbers, to 2 bags, the subject's electronics, and what appears to be ceramic tiles. DNA has also been collected from those items, which are being sent to Quantico for testing. We will also process the subject's vehicle for evidence. The Cellular Analysis Survey Team, what we refer to as CAST, conducted thorough analysis of the subject's cellular device locations. The CAST analysis aligns with witnesses' account of the subject's presence at the scene, both before and around the time of the incident on September 15th.
Let me just say, I wonder, Trump has had 2 assassination attempts. Now, the first attempt was supposedly, which of course I don't believe, is a lone gunman child, a young boy or a teenager or whatever he was, 20-year-old or something. That he did this all on his own because he's crazy. Now we're at assassination attempt number 2. And is the FBI, the Secret Service, are they going to give us the same story that he's a lone gunman? Now, I think I seen something about him. I think I may have played it already, where they kind of talked about what he did back in like 2001 or something, 2002, something like that. He had done something crazy back then, and I think he might be a Trump supporter or something. I don't know. I think I need to find that video and play it if I can find it. They was doing some kind of breakdown on who he was. They might do it on this, I don't know. But I mean, are we doing conspiracies at this point? Because see, I don't know if the quote unquote deep state, has it in for Trump. I don't know if Nancy Pelosi has made the phone call to get back for what happened with her husband getting smacked down with a hammer. I can't put my finger on it as far as where it's coming from. Or are these just, lone gunmen? I'm not going to buy it. Now, if he gets in the office, hopefully he will actually investigate this stuff, release all the information, and see if they can find something. But I mean, you're trapped. Unfortunately, we live in a system. You have to trust these systems and rely on these systems, and you kind of got to take what they give you in a lot of ways. It just shows you in a lot of ways you're more of a part of a system. You're not so independent as you may want to think you are. And I think the presidency kind of gives an example of what that looks like, So unless you're out there living in the woods by nature laws, which you still don't really control, of course, within this type of system, you have to rely on the FBI, the CIA, etc., and the sheriff's department, right? The local agencies and things, the state agencies as well. So, I think it's interesting that they're going to probably give us the standard sort of investigation and talking points, but I mean, there's clearly a problem here. And Trump, they can afford. Well, Trump needs to spend some money too, but they need to beef up his protection. I think he did just say that I think that Mar-a-Lago, right? I think they just said that it's pretty high security today. This is the question though, right? The man got shot 3 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, whatever it is. He just got shot. So even though I noticed, if y'all have noticed, that he got some much bigger, beefier Secret Service people on his detail, but I would assume I would have figured that they would still be on alert if he just got shot in the face a few weeks ago as former president. And I know the laws are different, and of course, if he was president, the place would be fortified, obviously. But because he's a civilian and he's running to get the job back, I do get that it's going to be a little bit lighter of a detail. But because he got shot in the face, there should be protocols in place to make sure that he's safe, right? So it's interesting.
More specifically, we're continuing to conduct analysis and we'll be compiling the subject's movements in the days and months leading up to September 15th.
We're never going to get that information.
Cellular data shows that the subject was in the vicinity of the golf course roughly 12 hours before the engagement with the United States Secret Service. Our investigative teams conducted a neighborhood canvass in an effort to collect and obtain relevant video footage. The subject had an active online presence, and we are going through what he posted and any searches he conducted online. In addition, we're going through media reports and public statements he made that he wanted to recruit Afghan soldiers and others to fight for Ukraine. The FBI has sent multiple requests to companies for returns on the subject's phone and social media accounts. We received several returns and are waiting on additional responses from other companies as well. Our investigative team is completing analysis of the returns and actioning leads as needed. And we anticipate continuing until the FBI knows the full totality of the subject's social media presence. By way of his background, in 2002, as the United States Attorney mentioned, the subject was charged and convicted in North Carolina for possession of a weapon of mass destruction. Law enforcement checks also revealed that from 1997 to 2010, the subject had numerous felony charges for stolen goods. I can also share with you that he was the subject of a previously closed 2019 tip to the FBI where it was alleged he was a felon in possession of a firearm. In following up on the tip, the alleged complainant was interviewed and did not verify, I repeat, did not verify providing the initial information. The FBI passed that information to local law enforcement in Honolulu. On behalf of the FBI, I would like to thank the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office and Martin County Sheriff's Office for their incredible work in actioning the witnesses' information and rapidly apprehending the subject. I would also like to thank the United States Secret Service, the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida, the Department of Justice's National Security Division, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, and our FBI field offices in both Honolulu and Charlotte, who have been conducting additional law enforcement activity related to the subject. Your continued partnerships have been invaluable. Oftentimes in law enforcement, we tell citizens to be vigilant and aware of their surroundings. Yesterday, a citizen provided remarkable assistance, which led to the arrest of this subject. We appreciate the public's diligence in passing potential tips and information regarding the subject and this incident to the FBI. If you have any information, please call 1-800-CALL-FBI or go online to tips, that's tips.fbi.gov. With that, let me turn it over to the United States Secret Service Acting Director, Ron Rowe.
If you're not making $158,000 per year, but you'd like to, I strongly...
Good afternoon, everybody. Yesterday afternoon, this country was reminded of the heightened and dynamic threat environment the United States Secret Service and its protectees face on a daily basis. Immediately following the assassination attempt of former President Donald J. Trump on July 13th, the Secret Service moved to increase assets to an already enhanced security posture for the former president. In the days that followed, President Biden made it clear that he wanted the highest levels of protection for former President Trump and for Vice President Harris. The Secret Service moved to sustain increases in assets and the level of protection sought. And those things were in place yesterday. At approximately 1:30 p.m., former President Trump was playing golf during an off-the-record movement to the Trump International Golf Course. A Secret Service advance agent supporting the front edge of the agency's layered approach to protection encountered an individual attempting to secrete himself in the wood line. This happened, the alleged gunman was on the public side of the fence near the 6th green. A layered approach of security is integral to the Secret Service's protective methodologies, and it's also the key to our success. As former President Trump was moving through the 5th fairway across the course and out of sight of the 6th green, the agent, who was visually sweeping the area of the 6th green, saw the subject armed with what he perceived to be a rifle and immediately discharged his firearm. The subject, who did not have line of sight to the former president, fled the scene. He did not fire or get off any shots at our agent. With reports of gunfire, the former president's close protection detail immediately evacuated the president to a safe location. The protective methodologies of the Secret Service were effective yesterday. The former president's protective apparatus allowed for the early identification of the threat and led to a safe evacuation. The increased assets directed by President Biden were in place yesterday. These included the counter-sniper team elements, counter-surveillance counter-surveillance agents on the exterior, counter-assault teams partnered with local tactical assets from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, and counter-unmanned aerial system elements. All of these entities were present yesterday. And while all of these assets were in place, as I've said publicly, we must satisfy the basic requirements of the Secret Service's protective methodologies. In partnership with local law enforcement, we did just that. And the agents' hypervigilance and the detailed swift action was textbook. And I commend them and our partners for an exemplary response in keeping former President Trump safe. And I will tell you, having served in local law enforcement in Palm Beach County, I can state that I am tremendously impressed and appreciative for all of the efforts of the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Snyder with the Martin County Sheriff's Office. But what was critical to this was the quick reaction, the response, the hypervigilance of the men and women of the United States Secret Service, who since July 13th have been rising to meet an unprecedented and hyper-dynamic threat environment. And they are rising to this moment. And I could not be more proud of them and the way they have executed, not only yesterday, but what they're doing today and what they are doing tomorrow and what they will always do because it is their duty. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, go slow here, folks. All right. Don't everybody do it at once. Ask who you want to answer the question and then give the question.
I have a question for you, Director. Is there any evidence to suggest that the suspect knew that Donald Trump would be on the golf course at that time? And was the golf course searched thoroughly before the former president's arrival?
So at this time, it was an off-the-record movement, meaning it was not on the former president's official schedule. And what I go back to is the layered approach. The elements and the methodologies of the Secret Service. There was a front element. It did its job in sweeping ahead of the president. That's what identified this individual who was in that wood line. And the swift action of that agent doing his job, pushing out ahead, sweeping while the president was behind him several hundred yards and several holes away, out of sight from the gunman, did his job. And that was what alerted the detail, and the swift action is what triggered that.
First question, was there any evidence to suggest that the suspect knew that Donald Trump was going to be on that golf course at that time?
Based on what I know now, and it's an active investigation, I don't have any information on that.
Well, Harry Parker.
How many times did your agents go around the perimeter and scope out the golf course during the 12 hours that this guy was holed up in the shrubbery?
So this was an off-the-record movement. it wasn't a site that was on his scheduled, it wasn't part of his schedule. So there was no posting up of it because he wasn't supposed to have gone there in the first place. Garrett,
He might get in trouble for that statement. Let me replay that again. What did he just say?
schedules. It wasn't a site that was
They're
on his
pressing him on
scheduled.
that too.
It wasn't part of his schedule. So there was
You don't
no
supposed to be
posting up
there,
of it
it's funny.
because
I'm sure Trump is probably just driving around on the golf course, doing whatever he got to do, and not keeping them posted. But don't try to play Trump. How is anybody going to catch that, or is it just me catching it?
he wasn't supposed to have gone there in the first place. Garrett Haig.
Have you briefed former President Trump on your?
I need someone to tell me, how does this random psychopath supposedly know exactly where Trump is? How did he get there? How long has he been? He's been there for hours in the bushes. It's just strange.
Findings so far, and has his campaign asked for any changes in his security going forward after yesterday?
So
I am still stuck on him saying he didn't supposed to go there.
sorry. So I've had a conversation with the former president. We've explained and we've worked with the campaign. The president is aware that he has highest levels of protection that the Secret Service is providing him.
I don't know about that, bro. That's
We
crazy.
constantly
to say
evaluate
that.
based on threat. And yes,
Just so I'm clear, you can say that with a straight face. You know that Trump has no choice, really. I mean, he really does have a choice. I don't know what the legalities are, but if I was him, I would just go and hire. Is BlackRock still in business? I would go hire some ex-military guys, period, 20, whatever the number needs to be, and have them basically work with the Secret Service or work outside of the Secret Service's purview and provide additional layer of security for Trump. Or I would just push the Secret Service away and bring in my own private security and have the Secret Service support them, because you got 50 days to become president. They're trying to kill you. And I don't trust the FBI or the Secret Service at this point. So I'm surprised that he's not. I don't know if he has any money left or what's going on. I mean, they got campaign funds. They're using it for the lawyers, which is crazy to me. I mean, I hope everyone who's supporting him know that a lot of that money he's been using to pay his bills, which, I mean, maybe that's legal. I don't know. It just seems to be unusual to me, but what do I know? But anyway, he needs to go and take some of that campaign money. Matter of fact, he could probably send me another text message that he sent me earlier today and ask for some money for for more protection. But just to sort of kind of just play the game of, well, we're going to trust the Secret Service and we believe in the Secret Service. If there was a man that's not a former Navy SEAL, not a Russian agent, as far as we know, or whoever, right? Some quote, because he was so funny. What's so ironic? I don't know if it's ironic, I guess, but what's so funny about some of this stuff is people keep talking about illegal immigrants coming across the border, terrorists coming across the border, right? All these dangerous people coming across the border. But if you look at the two people who tried to kill Trump, it's just a funny, it is kind of a funny thing when you look at that, right? Because technically speaking, illegal immigrants should be trying to maybe shoot people who possibly are maybe talking crazy about immigrants, right? So it is very, 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 very kind of strange, I guess, on some level.
today what we show is that our agents and our protective methodologies, and there's a lot of tactical assets in place, things that have been put in place as a result of what happened 60 days ago, those elements are.
Again, you should be fired. If that's your position, I mean, you just fired the last woman. They need to pull you right up into, I don't know, I guess she was in Congress or in the Senate or in the House. I can't remember. But just like they fired her, they probably need to fire you. Probably need to be next on the chopping block I think you might be acting, or is it the FBI who's acting? I can't remember, but I don't think he's giving good answers.
Are working, and that demonstrates the redundancies that we have. And so we constantly evaluate. We'll of course look at this and see what lessons learned from it. But as of right now, we are constantly evaluating that threat. And if we need to ratchet up additionally, we will. Yes, sir.
Do we know?
You know, because I could understand if this was done in a crowded situation or at a speech, but at his home, at the golf course, on the course, with the weapon, posted up, you're not doing sweeps. I mean, I don't know what the protocols are, but man, they should be asking much tougher questions from this person, in my opinion.
When Ralph arrived in Florida in general, when he arrived in Palm Beach, the area.
That's a question probably for the
Specifically,
FBI.
if he'd been at the golf course prior to this scoping it out.
We're in the process of collecting a lot of evidence, and that will be part of that investigation to determine his whereabouts going back quite some time.
Do you have any detail on where he might have gotten it?
That's part of the investigation as well. Again, that's going to be a little bit challenged until we're able to determine the serial number on that gun. So we're hopeful to be able to do that.
Mental illness?
We're still looking into that.
The sheriff mentioned about the highest level of protection that they would lock down the golf course. Was that a miscommunication then, being that President Biden ordered the highest level of protection?
Do you want to take this, Sheriff? Okay. So here's the deal. When it comes to Secret Service protection, we provide the highest level. So, for example,
that
yesterday,
mean?
counter assault
Yeah,
team
explain
elements.
it.
I'm not going to go into the number of personnel that we have out there, but we have the
clearly
highest
it's not
levels
enough.
of Secret Service. When
You're
we
not
work
saying
with the Palm Beach
anything.
County Sheriff's Office, like for example, yesterday, during that emergency action, we had their local tactical team assets partner with our local tactical team assets. We had their helicopter up in the air, providing us 360 and situational awareness of the overhead for any, if there were any potential threats coming at us. So what we did.
And the other thing is, they don't have drone support. They can just use technology to monitor everything. I don't even understand why that's not even just naturally just already set up. It's still strange with the amount of technology that we have. Every inch of that golf course should be covered. You don't need people with technology. I don't get it.
Yesterday was exercise our emergency plan based on the number of tactical assets and the highest level of protection that we are providing. The sheriff and I have talked. Now, clearly, when you go down Southern Boulevard right now and you try to get over to Palm Beach and you see the robust presence that's existing outside of Mar-a-Lago, the heavy uniform presence, the additional assets of the Secret Service. And for those of you that were here in 2017, when the president was in office, when you look at that footprint now, and you look at it today, there's not much difference there. There's heavy uniform presence out there. And what I go back to is yesterday was an off-the-record movement.
How did it happen?
Off the record. And the president wasn't even really supposed to go there. It was not on his official schedule.
You're going to get fired for that statement, I think.
And so
I don't think he knows what he's saying when he says this, especially with this particular person, Donald Trump. You're blaming the president for being shot at is crazy, by the way. And I know that if it's not going to be Sean Hannity, somebody's going to pick this up and spin this. I mean, it's just, they keep saying that he shouldn't be somewhere. You know, what does that even mean at this point?
put together a security plan, and that security plan worked.
I know that the Secret Service asked for additional resources.
Being in the vicinity, Special Agent Daughtry, in terms of him being in the vicinity, based on his phone records, is there any evidence to show that Ralph was in the vicinity in the area before Sunday? And when you say in the vicinity, does that mean right there at that spot in those bushes, or could it have been, down the street at a restaurant?
It was in very close proximity to where he was spotted by the Secret Service. In terms of your first question, whether he was there earlier, our investigation is still looking to determine that.
All right, whoa. We're going to do two more. You get one.
Thank you.
All right. Only two more. You get one.
Okay, we understand that the Secret Service has asked Congress for additional resources since the Butler rally. Have you received those resources yet?
So thank you for that question. So we are working. Look, the Secret Service
It's a
operates
yes or
under
no
a
question.
paradox
It's a yes or
of
no question.
zero fail mission, but also that we have done more with less for decades. And this goes back.
I ain't gonna lie. I've just heard a bunch of excuses. I mean, maybe I'm missing something here, but I don't want to hear it. More is less for decades. You're whining, you're bitching, you're complaining. We're the greatest country in the world, the biggest empire, unlimited resources, trillions of dollars spent on the military. There is no way. Didn't we just buy like a couple of new helicopters for like $500 million or something? What is he talking about right now? Now, if he would have said, too many Americans are fat, so we can't hire nobody. Give me something else than what he just said. We have a whole military, all the military retirees that could join the Secret Service. Man, just get out of here, man. There's plenty of resources, man. Stop it.
Many decades, right?
I don't want to hear that.
What I can tell you is that we have immediate needs right now, and we have great support, not only from.
Matter of fact, the first attempt in Pennsylvania, you had civilians pointing at this goofy dude walking around looking suspicious. What does they got to do? What does they got to do with not having enough assets? They were yelling, saying, "Who is this person? What is he doing?" Then the man gets on top of the building. They're still yelling, and you fools are ignoring it. And then you're trying to play this weird. Man, this is crazy, bro.
From President Biden, and you saw his public statement today, where he said that he's going to direct his staff to make sure that the Secret Service has the resources it needs. We're having fantastic conversations with members of.
So this didn't happen 60 days ago, though. Now you have it on the second attempt. So what about the third attempt? Then what's the excuses for attempt number 3?
Of Congress. I've been up to the Hill last week. We are continuing to have those conversations, but the long and short of it is this: coming out of Butler, I have ordered a paradigm shift. The Secret Service's protective methodologies work, and they are sound, and we saw that yesterday. But the way we are positioned right now in this dynamic threat environment, it has given me guidance to say, you know what? We need to look at what our protective methodology is. We need to get out of a reactive model and get to a readiness model. There could be another geopolitical event that could put the United States into a kinetic conflict or some other issue that may result in additional responsibilities and protectees of the United States Secret Service.
You're not you guys. How is the Secret Service not in a readiness format already, though? What do you mean? Why are y'all being reactive now? That doesn't even make any. What are you talking about?
And so we are working. We are making information available to all of our partners. And I just want to say that the commitment of Congress to the Secret Service throughout the years has been tremendous, and we will continue to work with them and.
Well, that's a good
Secretary Mayorkas, whose support in making sure that we're getting what we need has been phenomenal. He is one of our biggest champions in our advocate.
Or maybe you're making
we're having
sure that
these
Trump
conversations,
doesn't
and
get
I
what
feel
he
confident that we will get what we need. We have immediate needs. We have future needs too. I need to make sure that our counter snipers are the best trained counter snipers in the world, that they are exactly doing what we need them to do, and that they match counterparts in the military and Tier 1 forces. And right now, we are working with Congress to make sure that we get those for our training facility. We also have a necessary need to make sure that we're getting the personnel that we have. And that requires us to be able to have the funding to be able to hire more people. You can't just give me money and say, hey, we're going to make sure that everybody gets overtime. Because the men and women of the Secret Service right now, we are redlining them. And they are rising to this moment, and they are meeting the challenges right now. And if you look back at their body of work over the last 60 days, the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, the Republican National Convention in Chicago, a visit of Prime Minister Netanyahu to Washington, D.C., and to West Palm Beach, which Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office supported. And then we go into the presidential debate in Philadelphia last week.
I don't feel
for
safe
those
being around the
in the media
president
that have been to a national special security event, if you saw the National Constitution Center last week, what you saw was pretty much a mini national special security event with the number of assets that were on that perimeter. And so our folks are rising to this moment, but it requires all of us to be able to have good conversations and make sure that we're getting the Secret Service where it needs to be. And I'm confident that we will achieve that because we don't have an alternative. Success, we have to have it every day. We cannot have failures. And in order to do that, we're going to have some hard conversations with Congress, and we're going to achieve that.
Last question, one more.
The special agent in charge of the FBI,
Yes, sir.
did he act alone? Did he have some kind of help?
At this point, we're still exploring that, investigating that. Our investigation will determine that. We do not have information that he's been acting with anyone else at present.
Do we know how long he's been in Florida when he arrived?
Oh, you snuck one in there.
At this point,
Our investigation is still determining that. Thank you.
All right. Anyhow, that's it. We're not gonna do any more. All right, you got a lot of information there. The last thing I will tell you is, like the director of the Secret Service says, you know, the president called me last night, President Trump. He thanked me for everything that we did along with the Secret Service. He knows we work great together, and he feels safe. That's important because he is. And what we did yesterday proves that the system can work, because the suspect didn't even get close to getting a round off, and we apprehended him and brought him to justice. So we're very, very proud of that. Thank you, folks, for being here. I appreciate it.
Wow. I think they had a big a pipeline explode in Houston. So I hope everybody's okay. I know they said they're doing some evacuations up in the suburbs or something. That is insane. That joint's just burning. Jeez. I think JD he's not speaking yet at the Georgia Faith and Freedom Coalition dinner. So I'm still monitoring that. And I don't know if Kamala, I think she's gonna speak at some point today. I saw something in her on her page. I don't see it yet. Let's go look at, I think I've seen the video for some numbers though. Hope I didn't lose it. I gotta find that video. Let's see. Let's play this for a second.
Which showed Kamala Harris up by 6 points over Donald Trump among likely voters. So what's the problem for the Harris campaign, then, you ask? Well, with us now, CNN senior data reporter at an undisclosed location somewhere. I don't know. Oh, you're still right here?
Man, come on, just give me the numbers, man. I don't got time.
To explain to us why this poll in and of itself isn't either A, surprising, or B, that great news for Harris. Explain.
All right. So, it's not that surprising, Mr. Berman, from my undisclosed location. You'll never guess where I am. So take a look here. National polls in the last month, including leads within the margin of error. Look, Kamala Harris leads in pretty much every single national poll. She's led in 9 of the polls that have been released over the last month. Trump has just led in 1 national poll over the last month, and we've had 1 tie. So the fact that a national poll shows Kamala Harris ahead, not really much of a surprise because, John, pretty much all of them do.
And the thing is, Harry, thanks to the founding fathers, this isn't a national election exactly, is it? Oh, now you're suddenly behind me. You keep on moving. There's Harry, still at an undisclosed location, but at least virtually behind me, making me very nervous. All right, Harry, talk to us about what the states look like, the battleground states.
Yeah, so look, this is about the Electoral College, right? So let's take a look at the average margin. Nationally, Harris is ahead in the average poll by 2.5 points. But look in those 7 key battleground states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada.
Well, that thing is tight. Woo.
Harris is only ahead by 0.3 points, John. So the bottom line
is
in those
tight.
Battleground states, it's
that's
a
tight.
tighter race than it is nationally, John.
So Al Gore and Hillary Clinton are calling.
I don't want people to think of it like this, right? It's going to be about 170, maybe million people that's going to vote. And they're probably 90 to 95% of that, over 160 million people. They're going to vote for the D and they're going to vote for the R, regardless of who's there and regardless about all the political nonsense out here and all the craziness around politics, right? You're going to get all the people are already set to vote for Republican or Democrat. You will be able to motivate people who are already those Republicans, Democrats to actually come out in a larger number. Of course, we've seen growth in voting for quite some time, so we will probably see more Democrats and more Republicans probably come out and vote. But just knowing that you're going to get 90, probably 90 plus, maybe higher than that, that's going to go left and right. There is no persuasion. It's just people who were Dems for life or whatever however you want to frame it, or Republicans for life. And even in the so-called swing states, even there, it's that. I mean, it might as well. It's zero at this point, right? It's even. Man, it's going to be crazy. Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, PA, and Wisconsin.
Right now, Harry, asking what the chances are that Harris could win the popular vote but lose in the Electoral College.
Okay, so basically, you note that 2.5 point lead nationally here, right? Okay, Harris's chances, if she wins the popular vote by 2 to 3 points,
that's right,
she wins the Electoral College, is only 53%. The bottom line is, once you have to get all the way north to about 3 to 4 points for Harris
that's
to have
right.
a clear chance, the clear majority chance of
I
winning
get
the
a lot of popular vote to get there.
wins by less than 2. Look at that.
It's over.
Only a 23% chance of winning. Right now, Harris
Wrap
is
her
right now
up
in that danger zone where basically about half the time, given that popular vote margin nationally, she would win. And so here's the situation. Chance Harris wins the popular vote at this point is about 70%, but the chance she wins the Electoral College is
only one that
about
matters.
50%. So the bottom line
The
is at
only
this hour,
one
John, there's
that
about a
matters.
20% chance that Kamala Harris wins the popular vote, but actually loses in the Electoral College. So we could be heading towards one of these splits that we saw in 2016 and in 2000, whereby one candidate, Kamala Harris, wins in the popular vote, but loses in the Electoral College.
Yeah, part of me today thinking it's gonna, it might end up being
where we honestly don't know what's going to happen
like
based upon the popular
278 to like 254 or something.
At this point, really don't matter that much.
Harry Etten, thank you so much wherever you are. Stay safe, my friend. And
the question is, will they be able to, will we have a president on November 5th? Is the real question.
CNN political commentator
A
and
new
battleground
president,
host,
elect.
The post-debate polling you
Okay,
saw
SC
this
Cup.
Harry, a sign of something in the future, or the post-debate bump that everyone was expecting?
This race
that post-debate bump is gone.
And always
It's over.
very, very close.
The debate is over.
And that's why we're looking so narrowly at these swing states, and within the swing states, very specific voters, independent, undecided, moderate voters. And so the name of the
Independent,
game here is not,
undecided, moderate.
it's not complicated, it's not confusing, it's real clear. Both campaigns have their bases. They both need to reach these voters.
Right. The bases will come out and vote.
They're there.
It's
right.
the other undecided and the independents.
I can't believe this simple ritual still exists.
Man,
I've been
come
trying
on,
this really
man.
simple
I'm
bedtime
about to pay
ritual.
for this service.
And
it's commercial.
This one curl is the reason I started my wavy hair journey. When I found Pros, I was desperate for a solution for my.
We begin with Republican vice presidential nominee, Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio. Welcome back to Face the Nation.
Thanks, Margaret. Good morning.
Senator, we heard from Donald Trump this week that he wants to end all taxes on overtime pay for workers. How would this exemption work? Would this mean someone working a 40-hour work week would then not pay payroll taxes and not pay income taxes?
Well, that's exactly how he envisions it. Of course, we're talking about hourly workers. And of course, when you work overtime in this country beyond 40 hours, you get time and a half. And the president's saying, if you're one of those select hard workers that's really busting your rear end to try to make good in Kamala Harris's economy, then you should get a tax cut. And I think it fits fully, Margaret, with his entire tax.
I'm thinking now, if you're a person that's working, 160 hours a month, let's say, we'll just say 40 an hour, and you get time and a half, that's 60 an hour. And if you do just, shoot, man, you're talking about doing, you did 10 hours a month, 600 tax free. versus probably getting about, and that depends on your bracket at that point. Because of the overtime, right? It affects your tax bracket, so it changes all those numbers. That's very interesting. But you don't even got to work that much, and you're getting all that money. Yeah, I don't know, man. This is a good one.
Agenda, which is we want American workers to get tax cuts under President Trump's policies, and
I
we
like
want to
it.
actually penalize companies that are shipping jobs overseas through
I like that
tariffs.
too.
And Kamala Harris's
I
tax
don't know about the
policies are
tariff
in
part
fact
though,
the
but
inversion of that. She wants to raise taxes on American workers and actually reward companies for shipping jobs overseas. So it is a really stark contrast between the agenda of Donald Trump and of Kamala Harris.
Just to follow up on that, you said penalize companies who ship jobs overseas. So your tariff policy would only apply to those companies who are shipping jobs overseas?
Well, almost by definition, Margaret, when you apply a tariff, what you're really doing is applying a penalty to somebody who manufactures or makes something overseas. You're basically charging them a penalty to bring it back into our country. And so what we're trying to do here with these tariffs is actually induce more people to make more things in the United States of America. One of the great tragedies of not just Kamala Harris's leadership, but 40 years of American failure is that we've lost our critical manufacturing industries to Mexico, to China. We started to undo that for 4 years under Donald Trump's leadership, but we've got to do it for much longer and in a much more intense way, because as we've learned just in the last few days,
believe it.
the world has gotten more dangerous. We can't
Sorry,
rely
I
on
don't
other
believe
people
it.
to make the stuff we need.
It's cheaper to manufacture overseas, which is why so many companies do it. But that's another issue. Just to follow up on the promise you're making to working class voters, you are now saying no tax on tips, no tax on overtime,
That's
no
crazy.
tax on income from Social Security. All of that would wipe out a big chunk of the tax base. Do you really think that fiscally conservative Republicans in Congress are going to vote for this?
Well, I think obviously Republicans believe American workers should keep more of their own money. And yes, I think that if we actually balance this out by
Should keep
penalizing
all
some of
the
these
money,
companies for
not
manufacturing
more of it.
overseas,
Zero it
I
out.
do think that we can get this to balance out in the right way, Margaret, where we're not blowing a
Let's
hole in the
starve
deficit.
the federal
We're giving
government.
workers more of their money. But to your point, we're actually making it easier to make things in the United States of America. Now, you're exactly right. Sometimes it is a little bit cheaper to manufacture overseas, but we have to ask why that is. It's because a lot of these foreign countries use literal slave labor in manufacturing. We should not be allowing slave laborers to benefit from American markets. If you want access to our market, you've got to pay our workers fair wages. That is the Trump agenda, and it's something he already implemented once.
Y'all
by the
can
way,
make that
Margaret,
happen.
but
I
he's
will
going to
be
double down on it in
impressed.
second term.
Truly
so
impressed.
The 10 to 60% tariffs,
I
you're
don't
saying this is
believe
just
it.
a range, and you'll figure out exactly who it applies to if you win the election.
Well, I think you have to take some recognition, Margaret, that this is a negotiating tactic. You go into some of these negotiations, and sometimes you're going to have to do higher tariffs. Sometimes you might be able to do lower tariffs, but I don't think you go in saying you're going to do exactly this on every country. You use that as part of the negotiation. This is one thing that Donald Trump was so good at during his first term, is actually negotiating with foreign countries and benefiting American workers in the process.
Wow.
If you say you're not going to do any tariffs, you're basically going into these trade negotiations completely unilaterally disarmed. You don't want somebody who's negotiating for American workers who's already saying, I'm not going to use the most important tool, which is exactly what Kamala Harris has done.
Well, but Harris and Biden have used tariffs in strategic ways on strategic industries, and it sounds like you're saying you'll also be strategic there. You represent Ohio here in Washington, and your state's governor is asking for federal help to deal with the influx of about 15,000 migrants over the past 4 years.
Let's go.
Which has strained the health system, he says, schools, caused safety issues. You've been talking about these problems, but what have you done to help Governor DeWine with his request for federal help?
Well, the most important thing that we can do to assist Governor DeWine and the whole state of Ohio, and frankly, the whole country, Margaret, is to stop Kamala Harris's open border. And for 2 years, I've been fighting for policies that do exactly that. You have to ask yourself, why have these 20,000 Haitian migrants been dropped into a small Ohio town in just a few years, Margaret? And the answer is because Kamala Harris implemented what's called temporary protective service for over 100,000 Haitian migrants. She basically, with a magic wand, granted amnesty to thousands of people who shouldn't have been in this country. And now a small Ohio town is dealing with the consequences. And to anybody listening, Margaret, this is what Kamala Harris wants to do to every town in this country. Overwhelm them with migration, stress their municipal budgets, see communicable diseases on the rise. What is happening
This is the pocket that they want to be in. If they can push this level of race, hate, fear to the native population in this country, he said every town, what is it, like 50, 60,000 towns in this country, maybe more than that. If that idea can set, you're going to see an increase in voting. People who probably wouldn't normally vote, this might be able to move some people, but I don't know. These people are pretty lazy and don't vote, but I don't know though. I don't know. It might activate some people. I don't know.
Happening in Springfield is coming to every town and city in this country. If Kamala Harris's open border policies are allowed to continue, we have got to stop this. American citizens are suffering because of what she's done. And
here's the fact. Yeah, here's the facts, though. Many of those Haitian migrants move there by choice because they have temporary protected status, which gives them the ability to work. That TPS, temporary protective status, has been in place since 2010. And in fact, Donald Trump renewed temporary protective status for Haitians when he was president. Should he not have done that?
Well, let me do a little fact check, Margaret, because there was a renewal in June of 2017, I believe, which is very early in Donald Trump's presidency. And he actually ended it in 2018, that temporary protective service for Haitian migrants. Kamala Harris re-implemented it when she became president or vice president. Kamala Harris re-implemented it as vice president, and now you've seen this massive explosion just in the last few years. I mean, Margaret, just to give some context here, there were maybe 1,000 Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio just 3 years ago. Now there's close to 20,000, and it's impossible to overstate. It's overwhelmed local services.
Okay, so I understand you want to end
1,000 children now in a small district.
You want to end temporary protective
status. Please contextualize this, Margaret, because 1,000 children who don't speak English. So now the kids who are in that school district are not getting a good education. The local health services have become overwhelmed. This is a terrible tragedy. And I think it's important, Margaret, to say we're not mad at Haitian migrants for wanting to have a better life.
It's a great opportunity to
we're
grow
at
Springfield.
Kamala Harris for
to bring
letting
in new
this happen
industry,
to a small
to make
Ohio
better
town.
hospitals,
And
to build
thank God
more
Donald Trump
schools.
has called attention to
I mean,
it
what are you
and
talking
would fight
about?
back against these
You can look at
policies
this in a
if the
completely
American
different
people reward him with the presidency.
Well, Governor DeWine has been calling attention to it and asking for federal help. On September 9th, you amplified what you said yourself were rumors about Haitian migrants eating pets. Donald Trump then claimed those were facts, and he repeated them to 67 million people on the debate stage this past week. In Springfield yesterday, 2 hospitals went into lockdown after police were alerted to a bomb threat. On Friday, 2 elementary schools, 1 middle school were evacuated. Thursday, an elementary school was also evacuated, and Springfield City Hall had to evacuate due to a bomb threat made by someone who said they were concerned about immigration. These false claims are endangering your constituents. Do you regret your words?
Well, Margaret, first of all, we condemn all violence and condemn all threats of violence. I want whoever made these threats to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. But we don't believe, Margaret, in a heckler's veto in this country. You can condemn violence on the one hand while also saying that there have been terrible problems caused by Kamala Harris's open border in Springfield. Now, you said that these are false rumors. Well, I've heard about a dozen things from my constituents in Springfield, Ohio. 10 of them are verifiable and confirmable. A couple of them we have direct firsthand accounts of, for example, migrants abducting geese at the local park and slaughtering them and eating them. Now, maybe all of these constituents are lying to me, but I would appreciate if the American media showed up and did some real investigation rather than amplifying the worst people in the world. Why is somebody calling it a bomb threat, Margaret? It's because they want attention. I think that we should ignore these ridiculous psychopaths who are threatening violence on a small Ohio town and focus on the fact that we have a vice president who's not doing her job in protecting that small Ohio town.
Okay. Well, CBS did hear from community members in Springfield who work with migrants, and they have talked about security concerns. I know the mayor of Springfield, a Republican, told ABC News, "We've been punched in a way we should not have been punched." He said all these federal politicians that have negatively spun our city, they need to know they're hurting our city.
Why don't y'all say something? Who are all these federal politicians? Say some names.
Your words, sir. Do you regret them?
Margaret, we've been hearing about these problems for months, even in some cases for years. And the problem here is not that Donald Trump and I have called out what's happened to Springfield.
No, I have talked about the problems and cited Governor DeWine saying what were legitimate problems. I'm not asking about that. We have documented that. I'm asking about your words, sir, which you are responsible for.
But Margaret, you only documented it after Donald Trump called attention to it. And so, look, with all respect to the Springfield mayor, we've heard from many people who live in his town who are grateful, Margaret, for the fact that we are now talking about these problems and trying to
out of this
solve
stuff. Quit trying
we don't
to
want
answer the
anything
question.
bad to happen to Springfield, but the worst thing that's happened to Springfield in the last
You're
20
not Trump
years
Jr.
is that Kamala Harris allowed 20,000 migrants to be dropped on the front door with no plan to assimilate them, no plan to care for them, no plan to help the residents deal with the massive strain on social services. I understand. Look, I talk to a lot of people in Springfield. People are frustrated with the national media attention. Some people are also grateful that finally someone is paying attention to what's going on. You're never going to get this stuff perfect, Margaret, but that's why Kamala Harris shouldn't have done this in the first place. These people are suffering because she didn't do her job.
Again, the Springfield mayor is a Republican. That's who I was quoting to you. Yesterday, you posted a video, the origins of which CBS cannot confirm, claiming Africans are grilling cats in Dayton. Haiti's not Africa, Dayton's not Springfield. But putting all that aside, what is your intent in furthering the focus on these people? You're not talking about how to surge federal funds to help with safety, hospitals, and schools. You're talking about this.
Margaret, is your argument really that it's a huge difference if migrants are grilling cats 20 miles away from Springfield rather than downtown Springfield? And would it change if the video was 20 miles closer to where these things allegedly occurred? My point here is that the American media ignores these stories. Everybody who has dealt with a large influx of migration knows that sometimes there are cultural practices that seem very far out there to a lot of Americans. Are we not allowed to talk about this in the United States of America, Margaret? Because the American media is more interested in fact-checking innocent people who are begging for relief than they are in investigating some of these claims. I'm going to talk about what my constituents are sending me. That video was actually filmed by a constituent. That video was filmed by a person who is worried about what's going on in these communities. I'm going to talk about it because that's what I need to do as the United States Senator for Ohio, is represent Ohio and actually make sure that people's concerns get their voice.
Again, as a representative of Ohio, these are officials from Ohio, including the Dayton police chief, who said that there is no evidence of what you just claimed as being verifiable or true. CBS confirmed, we were able to confirm this video, and it was of the Proud Boys marching through Springfield yesterday. We know hate groups have been amplifying the concerns about Haitians for weeks. What exactly, what constituency are you trying to appeal to here by putting this at the center of the conversation?
He's trying to
Margaret, first of all, whatever a local mayor said about this case, I'm hearing from dozens of constituents who are concerned about these issues. They are allowed to be concerned about these issues. And I think it's shameful how the American media ignores them. Now, you mentioned a Proud Boys march. I imagine that's the clip that I saw yesterday of about a dozen people marching down the street. Of course, I don't align myself with the views of the Proud Boys, Margaret, but we have to remember that this is a real problem. The media is using things like a dozen marchers to ignore and distract from the fact that thanks to Kamala Harris's open borders, there are children who aren't getting a good education. Thanks to her open border, there is a rise in HIV cases in Springfield, Ohio. Thanks to her open border, murders are up 81% in Springfield, Ohio. I am much more concerned about the Vice President of the United States failing to do her job than I am that a dozen people carried the wrong flag when they were marching in Springfield, Ohio yesterday. Let's focus on the real problem. That's the Vice President of the United States not doing her job.
Hi, Mark Barden at Sandy Hook Promise here. When the gunman shot his way into Sandy Hook Elementary School on December 14th, 2012,
Sorry, I have to skip past you.
he loaded his AR-15 with 30-round magazines.
A new ABC News Ipsos poll gives Kamala Harris a lead in a close race among likely voters, with the vice president currently ahead of Donald Trump, 52 to 46%, a 6-point difference that is outside the margin of error. The data came in before the apparent assassination attempt by former President Trump yesterday, but it's still the only the second major poll to put Harris in the lead. That is outside the margin of error in the 2024 campaign cycle so far. Here to talk about it, Lance Trover, Republican strategist and former presidential campaign spokesman for Doug Burgum, and Jeremy Peters is here, a New York Times reporter and MSNBC contributor. So this poll, obviously, the second poll in a row, shows they're just barely outside the margin of error. When do folks start looking at it and say, oh, it's a trend?
Right. Well, I think they need to be looking at the swing state polls rather than these national polls. I mean, that shouldn't be surprising because Biden and going back to 2016, Hillary Clinton won the national popular vote. It wasn't even close. Millions of votes you're talking about separated Trump and the Democratic nominees. I think what you're seeing in the swing states, what's becoming increasingly clear after even all of these big events, shootings, debates, that it remains very, very tight. And even though Kamala Harris had a debate, no one would question that she really, really cleaned up there. A one debate doesn't mean a one presidential election.
So, Lance, you were deep in the GOP presidential primary just a few months ago. I know you've got connections. You talk to folks. What are you hearing?
I don't know if I got audio. Let's see. It's as loud as it go.
And that realization that the basic truths about being a good man, about
I actually cannot find me a clean.
being a dedicated father, those truths found their best expression in the Christian faith of my
I don't think
grandmother.
I cannot find me a clean video.
And that, I think, leads me a little bit into this campaign, in this race, and why we're fighting for what we're fighting for. Because in this room, while we're disparaged by the media and disparaged by the Democrats as people who want to force our faith on other people, I think I speak for every single person in this room saying, we don't want to force our faith on anybody. What we want is to recognize and to have motivate us the faith that is, I think, the source of all great truth in human history, and especially in this country. That we want our public policy to be motivated by the wisdom of loving. And that, I think, leads me a little bit into this campaign, in this race, and why we're fighting for what we're fighting for. Because in this room, while we're disparaged by the media and disparaged by the Democrats,
These are bad mics.
our faith on other people,
They're not pumping the mic.
every single person in this room saying, we don't want to force our faith.
They're not streaming it with the audio.
What is to recognize and to have motivate us the faith that is, I think, the source of all great truth in human history, and especially in this country. That we want our public policy to be motivated by the wisdom of loving thy neighbor. That we want our public policy to be motivated by an understanding that family is the most important thing in this country, is the most important institution in our country, and if the family falls, everything else will suffer, and suffer dramatically so. We are motivated, in other words, by living our faith and ensuring that our public policy promotes the common good. And I think that in this moment in time, in 2024, with all the violence and all the negative political rhetoric, we need to remember above and beyond that we must love our neighbors, that we must treat other people as we hope to be treated, and that we must love our God and let it motivate us in how we enact public policy, and how we live our faith, and how we govern our nation. And that will make America a more prosperous and a healthier and a more sane and, most importantly, a better nation. A nation with virtue and with truth at its core than anything else. Now, I think there are a lot of ways in which the wisdom of the Christian faith can influence us and make us much better public servants in 2024. And I think there are so many ways in which our current leadership is failing. Failing not just when it comes to matters of economics, not just when it comes to matters of immigration, but when it comes to very basic matters of how do we promote a country where good people can get ahead, where people can live those values destroyed by public police. That, I think, thank you. Clearly, you all agree with me. So let's just say that unless we get better public leadership, let's just issues that affect all of us, whatever our faiths are, or if we don't have any faith at all. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about those issues that affect, in particular, people of faith, because there are real battles to be had over the next 45 days. There are real debates to be had over the next 45 days. And I believe, as certain as I stand here today, that Donald J. Trump will be the next president of the United States. Let's talk about live and so the way that happens. Clearly, you all agree with me. Let's just say that unless we get better public leadership, let's just start with the issues that affect all of us, whether they're Christian or Jew, secular, Muslim, whatever our faith. Everybody wants a prosperous economy. Everybody wants a secure border. Everybody wants to be able to walk their children down the city streets safely without being, without being accosted by violent criminals or by fentanyl brought in by Mexican drug cartels. These are the things that unite us as Americans. And let's just be honest here, that on every single policy issue over the last 3.5 years, Kamala Harris was a failure, and on every single one of these policy issues from 2013 to 2021, Donald Trump was a raging success. In some ways, the question of this election is, do we want to be governed by common sense, or do we want to be governed by San Francisco liberal radicalism? And I think that all of us believe that we want to be governed by common sense. We want to be governed by the leadership of Donald J. Trump, and we're going to fight every single day to make that happen. Now, Kamala Harris will lead you believe, if you actually watch her speeches or you watch her rallies, Kamala Harris will lead you believe two things that just don't make an ounce of sense. The first is that she has been nowhere near the seat of power for the last 3.5 years. You go to a Kamala Harris rally, which I don't recommend, by the way. But if you're brave enough, or you watch one on TV and you see Kamala Harris say, on day one, we're going to tackle the food affordability crisis that affects our country. On day one, we're going to tackle the housing costs that affect our country. On day one, she says, we are going to secure that southern border, and all of us with common sense are listening and saying, Kamala Harris, day one was 1,400 days ago. What have you been doing with all that power the American people gave you? Now, Katie Britt and I have only been in politics for all of 2 years, so maybe we just haven't been in politics long enough to not be ashamed at the sitting vice president staring at the American people and telling them that she's going to do something on day one that she hasn't done for 3.5 years. I think that takes a special level of shame. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris is maybe the most shameless politician that we've had in the United States in 40 years. So she says it, but let's actually check the record, my friends. We have to remember this is a person who said that she wanted to defund the police. Now she doesn't. This is a person who said that she wanted to ban fracking in this country. Now, of course, she says she didn't mean it. This is a person who supported the rioters who burned down Minneapolis in the summer of 2020. She bailed them out of jail. Now she says she didn't actually want to do those things. This is a person who says that she does not believe in abortion up to the moment of birth, and yet has supported legislation that has done exactly that. Now, I joke with the president. I say, sir, this person is about to show up with a long red tie and a MAGA hat because she is running away from every single position she has had for 3.5 years. She's running away from every position she's had for 20 years. But we can't let people forget, when you're out there knocking on doors, let's remind everybody that this is not a person who is run as a reasonable moderate. This is not a person who is governed as a reasonable moderate. As much as Kamala Harris pretends that she agrees with Donald Trump on everything, we know the real deal governed as
You remember Alternative Facts with Kellyanne? They did the same thing. She wasn't saying you make up fictions and pretend they're facts. You bring other facts to bear in the debate that are being ignored. And that's what he was saying. And I think it was in that interview where Dana Bash says, the police have gone through 11 months of recordings of calls, and they've only found 2 Springfield residents calling to complain about Haitian migrants taking geese from ponds. Only 2 calls. And I think one lesson of this whole story, people don't care about geese. People really.
Hey, run that back real quick.
And they've only found 2 Springfield residents calling to complain about Haitian migrants taking geese from ponds. Only field residents calling to complain about Haitian migrants. Field residents calling to complain about Haitian migrants taking geese from ponds. Only 2 calls. And I think one lesson of this whole story, people don't care about geese. You make up fictions and pretend they're facts. You bring other facts to bear in the debate that are being ignored. And that's what he was saying. And I think it was in that interview where Dana Bash says, the police have gone through 11 months of recordings of calls, and they've only found 2 Springfield residents calling to complain about Haitian migrants. 2 Springfield residents calling to complain about Haitian migrants.
What do you think is the most important part of that? The N-word, or that they're Haitian?
I don't know. I can't tell. Cannot tell. It's funny.
Interesting.
It's funny though.
4 years later, we made incredible progress.
Say what?
I said we are in interesting times, my friend. Interesting times.
See, that's why I signed an executive order reestablishing the White House initiative on HBCUs after my predecessor allowed it to lapse. Thank you, Dr. Trent, for leading it.
Folks, again, if you want to see the full speech, simply go to our Black Star Network app or go to youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. All right, folks, when we come back, was it an assassination attempt? We'll talk about what took place in Florida, where the man with an AK-47 was arrested by the Secret Service near one of Donald Trump's golf courses. And why did Donald Trump ignore the Secret Service in warning him about playing golf at his courses and how it was not safe? We'll also talk about that explosive Washington Post report as well. Plus, we'll talk about ProPublica, a story where they broke where a black woman in Georgia was denied medical help because of the killing of Roe v. Wade. That sister died as a result. Did I not tell you these Republicans are not pro-life? All of that and more coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, the Black Star Network. First of all, folks, don't forget to support the work that we do. Your dollars make it really possible for all the work that we do. And so we want you, of course, to support us. Send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington.
Garrett Hake, who's with the former president in California. Peter Baker is New York Times chief White House correspondent. Peter is an MSNBC political analyst. And Brandy's a Trump. Your paper, the New York Times, wrote this, quote, "Their over-the-top imagery feel of an inside joke, a just kidding is implied, allowing political figures who might otherwise have hesitated to circulate debunked material to get in on it. The reality is beside the point." I mean, is it tongue-in-cheek? Because obviously, Peter, if you ask people in Springfield, where they've had bomb threats at City Hall just yesterday, white supremacists have rallied. This is very serious. So what's going on?
Look, reality has never been the basis of a Donald Trump campaign. Reality is what he says it is. And if you don't think that cats and dogs have been eaten, that's your problem as far as he's concerned. He is spinning narrative, right? And the narrative is a country under invasion by people from this from outside of the country, from this southern border, who are moving into your neighborhoods. They're taking your jobs. They're taking your resources. They're taking your pets now. And if there are fact checkers who are going to nitpick about the specifics as far as he's concerned, it doesn't really matter. It all fits in there. What's really striking about this, and Garrett was getting at this, I mean, I've been watching a bunch of Trump rallies lately for a story, and I'm struck by how much immigration is the dominant topic of every single one, no matter what it's supposed to be about. He may talk about, inflation, or he may talk about foreign policy or whatever, but it keeps coming back again and again and again.
Of neo-Nazi groups that are sort of rising right now. And there's about 100 members. They are operated by 2 former Marines. And what they do is they go to communities where there is some sort of discord, where last year it was Drag Story Hour. You would see these white nationalists, marching with swastikas. And this year we've seen them in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We've seen them in Springfield, Ohio. They were trying to get in on the anti-immigration, like you say, thing that the topic's so hot right now. And so white nationalists know that too. And they have been appearing at Springfield rallies. They have been appearing at Springfield City Council meetings and making threatening speeches. And they have been online, and they've been making these memes and pushing this angry racist rhetoric. And usually that's where it stops, right? For this time, for some reason, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump have promoted these claims and refused to back down from them. So for these white nationalists, this is mission accomplished.
Yeah, and it seems like, as I read your article, which I recommend people do, it's so great. But one of the people said, correct me if this is not the exact quote, this is what power looks like. This is motivating for them, that they believe something they put out there has made its way to the former president and Republican nominee. And he's saying it every single day.
Yeah, if you remember that moment during the last debate, the former debate, where Donald Trump mentioned the Proud Boys and said, stand back, stand by. Right. It's a very similar thing where these tiny groups basically operate on the internet and go and terrorize small communities, but don't make a huge national impact. When they do these things on the internet, that's where it's expected to stay. They don't expect that the president or the would-be president will actually amplify these claims. So for them, again, this is really like Christmas. They seek to recruit, to intimidate, to strike fear in the hearts of people in these communities, and to move the GOP further towards extremism. That is their stated goal. And with this, an SPLC researcher told me they've absolutely succeeded.
Southern Poverty Law Center.
Yes. They've succeeded.
They've succeeded. Okay, Peter. So to your point earlier, of course, the president has said wild things. He's trafficked in conspiracy theories since he began running for office. He's gone after migrants, that's for sure, countless times in the past. I guess the key question for 2024 for November is whether people's appetite, and I'm talking particularly about these undecided, these middle voters who will decide this election, if their appetite for it is markedly different than it was in 2016, if this actually ends up hurting and not helping him.
Yeah, I mean, look, it works for his base, obviously. This has been a base election, as it often is with Donald Trump, and he is speaking to people who agree with him and agree that the border has been a disaster. Obviously, for a long time during the Biden administration, there were very high rates of people coming over the border.
Attempt at his golf course nearby. Speaker Johnson joins us now to react. Mr. Speaker, did you think maybe your meeting was going to be canceled when you heard about the shooting? And what demeanor how would you describe the president when you got to him?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me. My wife, Kelly, and I were on the way to Mar-a-Lago when the shooting occurred. And so we were delayed a little bit because they shut down all the traffic. But then we arrived there about the time that President Trump did. We spent about 3 hours with him. He was in very good spirits, as you might expect. That's who he is. He's so resilient, and we were really grateful to see him. I said this, and we'll all be talking about this for quite some time. There's no leader in the history of America that has been so attacked and has remained so strong and so resilient. He's one of a kind. He is not going to stop fighting for the American people. And it was really encouraging for us to sit and visit with him right after that happened.
Mr. Speaker, I know your faith is very important to you. And after the first assassination attempt, what was it, 65 days ago? Donald Trump said it was providential, that he happened to turn his head at the right moment and look at that board, which normally he plays at the end of his rallies. But he said he felt like God was with him during that. Was he mentioning anything like that? I mean, this is the second time someone has tried to take his life. That has to be pretty jarring.
It is. It's a remarkable thing. And Kelly and I spoke with him at great length about that because it is something that no one can deny.
There is no law that could have been passed.
Meanwhile, House Speaker Mike Johnson posting this.
And he's one of a kind. He is not going to stop.
He plays at the end of his rallies. But he said he felt like God was with him during that. Was he mentioning anything like that? I mean, this is the second time someone has tried to take his life. That has to be pretty jarring.
It is. It's a remarkable thing. And Kelly and I spoke with him at great length about that because it is something that no one can deny. God has spared his life twice now. And I told him that it reminded me of the bulletproof George Washington, our first president, who evaded being shot when he was an Army colonel, the famous incident in the French and Indian War, where they all took shots at him and bullet holes went through his jacket and it didn't take him down. That event took place, ironically, less than 50 miles from where President Trump was shot on the stage in Butler, Pennsylvania. These things aren't accidents. It's not luck. I believe it's providence, and we talked about that. It's a remarkable thing. It would move any man's heart. I think it's moved the president's, and it's just something he's processing right now.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, it is interesting, because he is not just the nominee for the Republican Party, but also a former president. The reality is former presidents don't have the same kind of security bubble that current presidents do. Jimmy Carter, you got to figure he does not have as big a bubble as the current president, nor does Barack Obama. They've got protection. But nonetheless, he is the nominee. He is a former president. He is in need of more security.
He is. That's very well said. And, you saw him compliment online yesterday the Secret Service that are protecting him now. I got a briefing from the acting director of the Secret Service, Ron Rowe, within 90 minutes of the event. I was actually sitting with President Trump when he called. We listened to that in detail. And what I understand happened is that those agents that were with him yesterday saw that barrel of that gun between the bushes on a golf course. I mean, that's a difficult thing to spot. Right. Thankfully, they did. But unlike in Butler, they did not pause. They immediately pulled their weapons and fired. I think that's why this guy, the suspect, the shooter, threw the gun in the bushes and ran. Had they not been there, had they not acted so quickly and so decisively, we might be having a different conversation today. President Trump needs the most coverage of anyone. He's the most attacked. He's the most threatened, even probably more than when he was in the Oval Office. So we are demanding in the House that he have every asset available, and we will make more available if necessary. I don't think it's a funding issue. I think it's a manpower allocation.
Hey, see that thing up there? That's the Banished Shadow gun magnet, and you can get one for free today. Let me show you how it works. It's going to carry a gun as well as a magazine. Even lets you chamber around, and you can put it anywhere.
And just moments ago, the FBI, Secret Service, and other officials giving a major update on the second assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life. Watch this here.
The subject, who did not have line of sight to the former president, fled the scene. He did.
Service agent opening fire after spotting a rifle poking through a chain link fence while the former president was golfing, causing the suspect to flee in a car until cops caught up with him.
Driver, go straight back. Keep walking. Keep that low.
The Secret Service director also addressing concerns that his agency needs more resources. Watch here.
We also have a necessary need to make sure that we're getting the personnel that we have. And that requires us to be able to have the funding to be able to hire more people. You can't just give me money and say, hey, we're going to make sure that everybody gets overtime. Because the men and women of the Secret Service right now, we are redlining them. And they are rising to this moment, and they are meeting the challenges right now.
All right, Judge, take us through your thoughts.
Well, this is the second assassination attempt in 2 months, and you're only lucky so many times. Now, the Secret Service, you may recall, told us that the protection of Donald Trump was upgraded after we received the Iranian intelligence of the threat against him based upon his takedown of Soleimani as well as Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. And but what we saw in Butler was a fiasco of finger pointing by the Secret Service, as well as incompetence and reluctance by the Secret Service, although I would point out that we still haven't gotten the final report on this. But on yesterday, thank God that there was one Secret Service agent who was able to see the barrel of that rifle coming through a gated fence and was able to shoot. And God bless him for the fact that he had the ability to see and stop that. But I also want to be clear that I don't know that the attempted assassin, would have been caught, but for a civilian who took a photo of the car and got the plate number. So the first question I have is there really communication, or is there communication?
Now, what the judge just said, that's what I'm talking about. Stuff like that. So the Secret Service didn't even, I don't even have anything to say about it at that point. That's crazy.
Communication at all between the local police and the Secret Service. Now, there also is, why there's still question as to whether or not Donald Trump is getting presidential level protection. There were no drones, okay? There were no dogs. And, he's talking about either they need more people or they need more money. And the Secret Service said yesterday that
they could have got drones. That's what I said earlier. They could have got drones at Walmart.
Secret Service is, quote, limited to areas that the Secret Service deems possible. So why doesn't the
drones on
to
Amazon.
reimagining the police and reimagining everything, deeming that it's possible for someone to be able to see through that hole where people all the time, including the press, take photos of President Trump playing on the golf course. Everybody knows that that's an area that is capable. It's a major thoroughfare, and at the same time, don't tell me that you don't have the ability to secure outside of that fence. And they say that they can't close that particular spot. I'm not so sure that they couldn't have done that. Now, Biden says Secret Service needs more help. Congress should give more help. I have an idea. Biden could simply assign more help. He can redirect funds. We have $7.5 billion toward electric.
You sound like me. I don't want to hear myself
Apparently, Luke was in the tree.
There needs to be like an investigation.
First, I hope everyone had a good week, as good as you could have, and glad to be back around. I agree with some things.
Thorough investigation.
I disagree with some things. I agree wholeheartedly, based on what the sheriff said, and the sheriff of the county said that President Trump phoned him and thanked him and all of the law enforcement for their efforts. And I understand that President Trump, at least according to the reports, has told the Secret Service, "Thank you for your efforts." I won't tread over things that the judge has already said, but there are a couple of questions that I still have, and I hope we'll get from. I thought the press conference was constructive. They told us what they knew and what they don't know. Hopefully they'll come back and tell us when they do know these things. And one of 2, 3, 4, 5 things I want to know is, when did the guy get to Palm Beach? How long had he been there? Was he ever at Bedminster, or for that matter, any other place that President Trump has been over the last 6 to 12 months? And I think if we get answers to these questions, we will get the answer to, I think, the question that is reverberating in my mind when we learned that the president was safe, and that a fire. I did learn in the press conference no shots were fired. The guy did not have a line of sight. But the real question is, was he working with an adversary, a foreign adversary? And we don't know the answer to that yet. People say that the guy is perhaps low level and not sophisticated enough. But normally those are the very people who sometimes may be either knowingly or unknowingly working with people they shouldn't be working with. Finally, this notion of resources, where I differ a little bit with Judge, and you certainly have a strong theory around this as well. I just think whatever resources that they may need, whether redirecting something from one thing to the other, if the Congress wants to come back, and I think that everyone would vote for an emergency supplemental to provide whatever the Secret Service may need in terms of more training, more people, whatever more munitions, whatever it may be. And one of the things we may know is if indeed if it's an off the record thing, which we learned this was, we know the president likes to go there. So maybe they should just sweep these things anyway. And if they need more resources for this kind of thing, that's what we should not only perhaps give them, that's what we should absolutely give them to make sure we don't have this problem again. But I congratulate the Secret Service again on saving us again from one of the great tragedies the nation would have ever suffered.
Jesse, the FBI special agent in charge of the Miami field office said that the attempted assassin was the subject of a previously closed 2019 tip to the FBI that Ruth was in felony possession of a firearm, which means that he shouldn't have had it.
So he's all over the FBI's radar. He was all over the media's radar. And he was all over the State Department's radar. The State Department got a tip about him when he was in Ukraine. Dana, what's up?
We have received at least 33 separate bomb threats, each one of which has been responded to, and each one of them has been found as a hoax. So 33 threats, 33 hoax. I want to make that very, very clear. None of these had any validity at all. We know that people are very, very concerned, and we have taken some actions, and in a moment I'll let Andy Wilson go into more parents have. We want to make sure as school continues this week to not let the bad guys win. Our schools must remain open. They're going to remain open, but to ensure parents that their child is safe with threats.
You're seeing Skechers' famous mindset footwear everywhere. And now that famous design
It's becoming a small little bit of a disaster.
Threats, but every one of them has to be checked out and every one of them has to be cleared. And as you can imagine, the men and women who serve in the Springfield Police Division, they have their normal duties of basically doing patrol and keeping the city safe. So it's placed an incredible strain on the resources of Springfield to respond to some of these calls and these threats. To that end, again, I think a lot of credit has to go to the city leaders here in the Ohio Office of Homeland Security to do. We'll have one here 24/7. Well, they will have one here during the times where we're getting these bomb threats so that we can more rapidly clear these. We also brought in personnel from our Office of Homeland Security, our investigative services from the State Highway Patrol, in order to do that, we have to be flexible, we have to be fast, and we have to be responsive in clearing these threats so that, again, the citizens know that they're safe and that we have Springfield, and we will do everything in our power to ensure that the men and women
and do what we can to keep Springfield citizens safe.
Okay, thank you. Happy to take questions.
Governor, so the Highway Patrol, we're going to be partners in this with the Springfield Division of Police. Our goal is and we have offered whatever resources they need to help keep this community safe. We're here. We're gonna do that. We're gonna be here for as long as we need to be. To help our partners out, because the one thing that we do know is when we all work together, it turns out better. And this is a situation where the patrol has the resources, and we're going to be good partners and do what we can to keep Springfield citizens safe.
Okay, thank you. Happy to take questions.
Governor, the former President Trump has said that he wishes to come to Springfield at some point. Do you think that's productive?
Oh, wow.
Campaign time, for 50 some days left to go. President has former president as well as the vice president have every right to campaign wherever they want to campaign.
You mentioned one particular country.
Yeah, I'm not going to go further than that. So,
Governor, what do you say to AG Yost, who has amplified these rumors in the past week?
Look, I can only speak for Mike DeWine. I'm the governor. What we try to do is find out what the facts are and convey that to the people. Springfield is a great city. This is a city that, frankly, is on the move. If you look where Springfield was 15 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, we're moving. We're talking to a company right now that may end up coming into Springfield.
It's called immigration.
We got a lot of companies looking at Springfield. There's a lot of good things, positive.
That good, cheap labor force that's compliant, obedient.
Who are working, they wouldn't be working unless they were legal. The companies hire them because they needed the help and they needed the support. So it's, these are people who care about their families. These are people who value education. They are hard workers. I want to make sure I'm very, very clear. I'm not saying people shouldn't talk about immigration or they shouldn't talk about the southern border. And they can talk about anything they want to. But I think I have an obligation to say what is going on in Springfield. And who do I rely on? I rely on Mayor Rue. I rely on local other officials, chief of police, as far as the information that I convey to you all.
And we're joined now by Maryland Democratic Governor Wes Moore. He's a member of the Harris campaign's National Advisory Board.
What up,
Governor,
Wes?
I have a lot to get to with you, but I want to start on where we left the conversation with the senator from Ohio, J.D. Vance.
Wes out here getting that
He
shine.
argues that talking about this strain on the local
Getting on the
communities
map.
from migrant populations should not be dismissed as racist by the Harris campaign and should be discussed on its merits. What do you make of the continued push to focus the conversation here?
Well, I mean, there's a remarkable amount of not just inaccuracies, but dog whistling that we heard from that. But, you know, of all the many things that I think were really problematic with what Senator Vance said, when at the end of the interview, when he started talking about just some local elected official and what they have to say, these are people who are closest to the ground. These are the people who are closest to their constituents. These are public servants and these are partners inside the work. And in the case of that mayor, that's a Republican who's saying that this isn't about politics and it's not about politicizing this issue. We know that to be able to address these issues, and particularly big complex issues like the border crisis that our nation continues to confront, we have to do it in partnership. And I think when you're hearing those kind of comments from someone who's aspiring to be the vice president of the United States, I think for all of us as local and statewide elected officials, it just gives a sense about how he views partnership and how he views the intelligence that's coming from us who are on the ground having to deal with these challenges.
The governor of Ohio, a Republican, also again today said the claims being made there were not borne out by fact. But he's also asking for federal help with a very real thing, strain from the migrant population. Should the Harris campaign talk about that more? Should the federal government be doing more?
Yeah, well, the federal government absolutely needs to do more, as is Congress. And I think that that's part of the reason why the frustration that we saw when it came to things like the border deal, which was a bipartisan deal that we had both Democrat and Republican support for, that one of the anchors and one of the authors was one of the most conservative people within Congress, Senator Langford. And the deal was killed because Donald Trump said that this was not going to be advantageous to my campaign. So the challenge is what we're seeing from both Donald Trump and J.D. Vance is we're receiving political talking points, but we're not receiving actually actionable ideas to be able to address the issue.
But I guess on the issue of empathy or understanding, should there be more recognition, not just, oh, we tried and it didn't get through up at the national level, but on the local? Reach out to Governor DeWine and say, I understand you have problems with your hospitals, with your safety, with the languages. Those things are real.
Yes, they are real. And frankly, those conversations have happened. You know, we've had conversations for continuing on for months with the White House, with the administration about what we're seeing on the ground and about the supports that we need. So we know that we actually have an administration that is working in partnership with us. And in the case of Vice President Harris, we have a presidential candidate who actually uses the power of personal connection to be able to connect with us as state and local leaders from what we're seeing in the state of Maryland, what other governors are seeing around the country, and actually.
Now, following the Supreme Court's landmark decision, we recognize that the obligation to help nurture and protect the women and the babies all over this country has only just begun. And that's why we've been supporting policies and fighting for policies we bring to the forefront that promote the creation of strong, thriving, and healthy families. We want to make it easier for families to have babies, not harder. We want to make it easier for young moms and dads to choose life, and we're going to do it every single day for the government. Now, that includes supporting advanced prenatal care, fertility treatments, mental health, and paternal responsibility, because we know that very often the reason some people don't choose life is because there are a lot of young men who aren't stepping up. And we want to change all of that. We want young families to choose life. We want young men to choose fatherhood. We want young people to choose family in this country. And we want to invest in women, especially pregnant mothers who need help welcoming a new child into the world. Sometimes it's scary. I know this, and it's especially scary when a pregnancy is unplanned, but we are going to support mothers and children. We're going to do new investments in counseling, in job training, and help with newborn expenses. We're going to do new investments in education and pregnancy care centers and so much more, because we believe that this country must be more welcoming to families. And we're committed to helping as many women as possible choose life and welcome new life into this world. Now, we're going to also protect women from sex trafficking, domestic abusers, and those who coerce women into abortion, because it does happen and it shouldn't happen. It's a big game. She does that a lot. About uniting Americans and about respecting everybody. There has been no more radical leadership in this country when it comes to shutting down.
It's just not good audio. It's a hard listen. I'm gonna let that go. Anyway, I might jump back on later on tonight, maybe. I know Tito Jackson, he died today. I saw it earlier today. Tito, Frankie Beverly. It's crazy. But DC, did you have any thoughts, opinions, comments
No,
about what's
just
going on with politics today? Anything you've heard,
no, I would
seen
just say
anything,
this.
or
Can you hear me?
yeah?
No, I would just say this. I just think that people can just I think that
50
the
days to
best
go,
thing,
man. 7 clean weeks.
7 clean weeks. And
Yeah,
I think one of the
7 weeks.
best things about it is that everybody can kind of decide for themselves. But I think that this this election is going to tell a lot about the direction of how the American people want to be governed, um, so to speak. So it's going to say a lot, and the demographics and how it breaks down and everything. It's going to be very, 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 very interesting. So, but I would say this also: I would not pay attention to the polls as much when it's this close. Not, I think it's good to see the snapshot of how close it is, but um, this thing can turn on its head in a heartbeat. So just do more observing, keep an open mind, and stay learning. Continue to learn, like Mr. Fuller says. You don't know everything, so that's it. That's it for me, man.
Yeah, we
That's it.
got 50 days to go, 7 weeks. We might go live later on tonight. Something else goes on. We'll see what happens in the media space. I don't know if you're going to be available later on tonight or not, DC. But I don't think anything is going to probably go on too much today. I was trying to see if VP Harris had a speech. I think she's speaking at some point today. Thought I was going to be able to catch it. I didn't think JD's audio was going to be so terrible. You can't really listen to it. Can't even listen to it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, either way, just let me know if you go on live. That's cool.
Yeah, we might go live later on. If not, we might go live tomorrow or the day after. This depending on anything going on or percolating, any shifts in the numbers, or any new news just in general, or new announcements. I mean, Vice President Harris and Tim could maybe come up with a new policy, a new plan, because things are going to kind of slow down. It's already starting to happen. Trump gets shot. That shifts a lot of the news. You still have international politics going on, and just things just in general that are happening in the country. The Haitian migration thing is sucking up a lot of oxygen. And people are gearing up to start to vote. So if you haven't registered, make sure you register. Pick your team. if you're not already on the team, if you're not this is for the non-standard voters. If you're a standard voter, then obviously you're going to click the D or the R. But if you're on the fence or you haven't made a decision, do what you got to do. Make sure you get registered. I think the earliest state, Is it Mississippi? I think the earliest state to vote is coming up pretty quickly. I think it's about 45 days, right, until the election. I forget which state it is, but there's a handful of states out there that I want to say they're like 35 days or 30 days, and maybe even one is like 40 days, I think. So in about 10 days or less, people are going to actually be voting in this election in 2024. And from that, we'll probably do something on that, I guess, at some point. You tell me, DC, if you want to do some voting stuff. Maybe in a few weeks when voting really ramps up.
Yeah, I would like to maybe do like a panel or something, maybe separate from like the videos, something like that, if it's
Yeah.
possible. Yeah, just to kind of give people their time to kind of, you know, since we garner so much reaction from people, I think it's only fair if we could just
I
get
don't
them.
even pay attention to that shit.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'll do it. I'll do it, and you know, we can just separate the two.
Yeah, I was just talking about
That's good.
voting that's coming up, the early voting states that are coming up in the next few weeks, preparing to vote, making sure you register to vote, and vote early. Really, vote early. Don't forget about your state elections and your county elections as well. So anyway, I think that is about it for now. This is the Code Breakers. This is Paradox.
And this is DC. Until next time, peace.
Peace.